All right. 3 meatheads, a couple of beers, and a couple of countries. All right, let's do this.
Tango 1 at the top, we are at Palma Vehicle. 10-4, Tango 1, you have control. Tango 1 copy. Stand by. Stand by.
Integrity, passion, resilience. That's what this place was built on. That's what our community is founded on. Don't act like the example, just be the example. This is the home of the greatest fitness community in the world. We're trying to create strong, able bodies, resilient to injury with a gas tank to get shit done. If there's one thing from this podcast, it's about taking immediate action. Find the problem, fix the problem. This is your opportunity. It's either a hell yes or a fuck no. It's that simple. You're ruining the Tango 1 podcast. Now is the time to take action. Now's the time to do more and be more.
Welcome to Tango 1 Podcast. I'm Tony Smith, retired cop, SWAT team leader, and the owner of the Garage Gym at Tango 1 Solutions, joined by my co-host, friend, and fireman, Garage Gym trainer Casey Wright. Our mission is to challenge you and guide you to create an immediate action plan against your problems and your weaknesses. We want you to do more and be more. Back on the show again today, we got Gus, my big buddy, Jason Gusic, from Indiana. Gus was on here about a month or so ago. He's a master Westside barbell coach, the head of the Westside Conjugate Tack Club. He's an ex-Marine and ex-cop. He's also the owner of my favorite gym other than the Garage Gym, Applied Strength and Conditioning, and he runs the equipment sales and education for Arsenal Strength, where he focuses primarily on military and police or first responder accounts. So welcome to the show, Jay.
Yep. Thanks for having me back.
People love the last one, man, and we want to get in a little bit more like with some specific training stuff today and just talk a little shit as usual. So let's get going. Man, okay, so lately, the Westside Conjugate, so Westside Tactical or Conjugate Tactical, however you want to refer to it. I know we call it the Contact, but it's on Instagram as at Westside Tactical. That thing is really growing some steam, man. It's awesome to see. We're getting all kinds of people joining the crew. And first, man, like the short shorts. So you really have made a statement when I first met you 4 or 5 years ago with the short shorts. It's all I wear now. And now as part of the Westside Tactical coaching team or seminar team, if you post something without short shorts, you actually I feel like I'm like subject to a fine or something or some kind of public hazing. What's up with that? Where'd that come from?
Yeah. One of the gals on Instagram reached out, pretty blonde gal. Her husband's kind of a nerd, but she wanted to know what the hell was going on with the short shorts. And it just became a thing, man. That's all we ever wore a decade and a half ago in the service. And they're way more comfortable than long shorts. So we just kind of stuck with it. And it turns out there's a whole bunch of bros that want to live the short lifestyle. We just needed some numbers and it's just growing more and more.
I've become addicted. I've got the Lulus, but now I've made this new purchase, and maybe as a military guy, an American military guy, you can fill me in because I don't know what I'm wearing, but I love them. These silkies, what's up with that?
That is the only short not made by Lululemon that is okay to wear. That's just little green running shorts. When we were in the Marines, we used to I just remember we would do these big runs in like Honolulu and stuff, and the Marine Corps did not have the fanciest PT gear like some of the other branches. So we all just kind of wore this like hillbilly, like ghetto stuff. And the silkies just rule. And then like some of the dudes that get kind of cool, they kind of go to like a black shorts. I don't think it's a formal uniform change, but most of the cool guys go to black silkies, and then a bunch of Navy dudes wear blue silkies. And then everyone else wears like actual like classy, good looking PT gear. So we just stuck with silkies because that's all I really had left when I left the service. And I didn't really realize back then it was weird in like 06, 07 to wear silkies out in public because that's just all we knew. But I'm glad they made their way north now into Canada because it's the greatest short.
So I actually when I ran track in high school, we were wearing the silkies. So if any Canadian listening doesn't know what the silkies are, it's like the old school, look up a guy who's in the 40s looking track in 1990 or 1985 or whatever and look it up. That is what you guys are wearing. These things are unreal though, but I wanted to work out with them, but then I feel like everybody can see right through them if the light's behind me, and that's okay, but this is a family place. Well, underwear under the silkies defeats the purpose.
You're really paving the way for the next generation of
men
lifters.
So what do you think? Do we put in some kind of penalty? Should you post in long shorts? You can wear pants or tights, obviously, but is there a penalty? What do you think?
The last one, a dude out in Colorado named Bo, he's a big old strong bastard, has pretty much taken it upon himself to be kind of the enforcer of the short shorts. So he's monitoring any and all short posts to make sure that lengths are appropriate. So I've been able to sidestep that one. So the length of shorts is in good hands under Bo supervision.
Now, what is the ideal lengthwise? Like you talk about in high schools, and I remember at certain schools, girls had to keep their skirt below or so far from the knee. Is there a certain amount of height above the knee that it must be?
Yeah, I think anything longer than a 5-inch inseam has been deemed pretty inappropriate. I like to hang out about a 3. So I think silkies and some of the shorter running shorts will put you at about a 3-inch inseam. But if you have fabric anywhere near your kneecap, I just don't know. That's not a life I want to live.
So we were laughing with a couple of ladies in the gym, and they were making fun of my short shorts. And I'm like, hey, relax, ladies. Like, at 42 years old, only the stuff you don't want to see will fall out.
What was it? Billy Madison, when he knocks the dude off the bench.
Yeah.
Oh, look at his balls.
All right, let's get a little bit more professional here. So, Jay, you helped us put together our first strength squad here, and you're really helping me along with this West Side, the Conjugate system, and kind of like how I could apply it, fitting it into my general pop clientele. But that took off, and we had a bunch of women in that group. That strength squad wasn't so, it was a program, but everybody followed the same program. That has kind of morphed into like some small groups. And in the last month, I've started training a bunch of women, and like specifically following the West Side kind of Conjugate system and, the tactical system. And they're progressing, and it's been like so awesome to see like this like incredible buy-in for women that want to get strong. So I just want to learn. This is more for me to learn. This isn't a question off the internet. Is like, when you're programming with the Conjugate system, are you differentiating between how you program for the women as opposed to like, are you still just looking for weakness and trying to attack it the same that you would, look at Casey, you would look for that weakness? So like, is there any difference in how you do that?
There are no weaknesses in Casey, obviously.
Thank you.
But
Thank you.
Yes and no on both. Like there's just certain like anatomical things or whatever you want to call it that are different between male and female, obviously. So traditionally, at least the folks we've been fortunate enough to work with, most of the gals have a tremendous amount of hip mobility compared to a lot of the dudes. And if there's no strength to support that mobility, then you can start to develop sort of long-term issues or just start creating problems there. So not necessarily in the execution of the lift, but in the totality of programming, that's one of those scenarios where we've done enough of this stuff over the last decade and however many years that we can get most of the gals on some accessories that'll build their hips up to support the mobility. Then we're gonna kind of prime them to not be so injury prone 6 months or a year down the road when their strength really starts to take off and it's sustainable. Everyone does great in the first 6 weeks. It's 6 months, a year, 5 years down the road where the real progress kind of has to be made. So if we can do some of that stuff more so than just basing it off of male or female big picture, that's one of those common trends that kind of pops up. And then for the dudes, it's almost the exact opposite. We want to try and work on some mobility and flexibility in the hips, in the low back, everything pertaining to just that problem zone, the low back, the SI joint, the hips and groin, because what we'll tend to do is just kind of knuckle down and try and grind through it. So that's the thing we always talk about of the danger of compensating versus correcting. So we'll try and work in some different exercises or wider stance accessories for dudes to keep them strong and loose versus some of the stuff we do for the gals where we want to get them strong because they're already so flexible. And then just moving. There's obviously a drastic difference in male and female chests. So when it comes to developing barbell patterns and stuff, we don't want to put a gal in a position to cause herself physical pain for benching, where a dude's bar path might ride somewhere more comfortable above or below like the chest area. So small stuff like that comes into play. But by and large, when a lift has failed, which is where we start gathering all of our data, that initial point of failure in any of the big lifts, it's failed the same male or female. And then just depending on your demographic, like some of the gals, at least in our gym down here, tremendous calisthenics and body weight movement stuff. But for the desired sport, which a lot of them it's distance running, we don't necessarily want to tack on a lot of size and stuff, but we'll use the development of maximal strength to build the other elements of their preferred sport. So it can kind of spiral and get real individualized. But just like you said, like it can go from the beginning where everyone's doing the same thing and making great progress And then over time, it can get a little bit more individualized or small group. And that's kind of the same thing almost anywhere. So you can pair up male and female with the similar fault and tackle the same obstacles. But a lot of it is just kind of understanding some of the anatomical differences or the mobility and movement issues that show up between the two. And just kind of going off of that as a starting point. Obviously, there's always an exception to the rule, but that's one of those things. Like the best short-term example is focusing on the hips, because you watch some gals getting a sumo deadlift, they're almost doing an ass to grass squat with a perfectly vertical torso, and then they go to pull the bar, and that strength might not be there to initiate the movement and maintain all the angles and levers you want to. So then it's like, okay, that might be a little bit too much in one direction. So we need to get that strength there or assess their position. And then, like I said, the exact opposite for dudes, where we're going to, no one wants to miss that deadlift in front of their buddies. So even if our butt's shooting straight up in the air and back's rounded out and blood's coming out of your nose, like, we're going to keep trying. So it's kind of personality based on part of it. And then the other half is just some of those common patterns to build a starting point from, and then assess off the individual or the small groups of people that have similar faults.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of that with the female group, and we've been working on correcting that too. Is one, the range of motion I think has really been kind of overplayed in like the media, for lack of a better word, in our like little area. Is like the ass to grass when you have no stability in that bottom position, but also like that squat down on a sumo with a straight body, but then also the opposite on a squat where their almost hips goes back so much further than like mine, or I know me and you are a couple of tight guys that we can't get back on that position. So that's like two of things. What a couple of maybe if you have any like layman's terms like corrective exercises for that for a female maybe who's listening.
I mean, part of it's just building strength, like just building or working towards building a higher level of maximal strength is going to support everything down there. But without knowing the individual, like typically if they're able to get down low and stand up with, the desired angles, all that stuff maintained. But when you add weight and it stops, that's the identifier that strength's the issue, not mobility or movement. And then as far as sitting back into the squat, a lot of that is balance as well. So folks tend to push back further with more vertical shins. They're going to have a very strong backside. So the glutes, hamstrings, and the hips and all that stuff are going to be on par with where they need to be. That's what allows that position to happen versus dropping down with that forward shin angle. That shows that the backside of the body is usually not very strong. So we're not necessarily compensating, because I don't know any of these hypothetical people. I don't know how or why they squat the way they squat. But typically, if your shins are forward, that's where you're relying on the quadriceps a heck of a lot more than the backside. And depending on the methodology you want to follow or how you want to get from point A to point B as far as training goes, that'll kind of dictate how you squat. But then you've got the idea that if people box squat too much, their bar path and movement pattern changes to facilitate the box, and then they need to get off the box on occasion and go back to a freestanding squat or just your normal squat. So it could be any number of variables, but I would ultimately say if you strengthen the hamstrings and glutes, you'll be able to move your backside and your butt down and back in any angle that the coach decides is the right way for that person to move. Only if they start to fall over or lean forward unintentionally to compensate do we know that you've got an issue at that point.
And you can see it, I think, like when we train as a staff, you can really see it. I think it's almost identical between me and you versus, say, Steph and Nikki, for example, who have like really good mobility, where we lack in that mobility. So majority of our lifts, say if we're working on the squat or the deadlift, they can very easily get down to that bottom portion of a squat with ease. Right, where we're almost using the weight of the bar to help us kind of stretch through that movement to reach those areas, where for them, more likely than not, they're going to struggle at that lower half because they don't have that as much elasticity at the bottom to really like, we're just pulling at everything we have in our muscles to spring us back up, where they now have to build that muscle at the lower half in order to then strengthen through the rest of the lift. Whereas more likely than not, we're going to start to fail a little higher up in that movement.
All right, let's get that asterisk out there. We're speaking in very general terms for all you trolls that might be like all over us. Like we're not speaking based on an individual prognosis. We're looking at some very general terms. Go ahead, Jay. I cut you off there, man.
A majority of us are training in the gym to supplement work and family. And I'm not saying movement and exercise. Doing stuff the right way is terribly important. But when we go do a lot of our private stuff for like different government groups and stuff like that, we talk about the difference between the squat and a squat or your squat. And it's different strokes for different folks. Like if we can get someone healthy and move them forward, but we deviate a bit from the script of everything has to be ass to grass and all that stuff, and some unintentional wear and tear is showing up, or you really get, it's like we always joke around on the side, is that the juice versus squeeze on all of this stuff. Some folks, they just flat out don't like good morning. Some folks are just not going to load a heavy bar on their back and do a heavy good morning. And the world's going to keep spinning whether or not they do it. Everything's got a risk versus reward to it. And for some, crossing that point of diminishing returns as far as intensity or that perceived risk, be it, loading and volume or just a lack of movement or, skill in moving the bar for that particular lift or exercise, any number of those things can be a reason why someone doesn't want to train. And at least in our context as strength coaches in this quote unquote tactical space, all we're doing, just like we say at the courses, is building the foundation for folks so that other trainers or staff or skill experts, be it shooting, fighting, medical, whatever it ends up being, they have a greater platform or a better quality of person physically to build up to be a specialist in a field versus hurting people for the exchange of dominating the gym and then screwing their careers up. So all that kind of stuff, like, if you want to go to the Olympics, you should have an Olympic coach. But if you're trying to get yourself strong and fit and in shape, it can be done safely quite well by catering to the individual needs short term to keep them strong and fit. And then the long-term goal is obviously, full range of motion to that set point where the coach deems is appropriate. So full range of motion, proper movement patterns, eventually heavier weights and the desired endurance to support it all. But like you said, we're never going to make everybody happy. This is just the way it seems to work for us and a lot of the folks we've been able to work with. And when you trickle it down to general population, be it first responder, military, or folks that just want to stay in shape using the Conjugate system and the West Side methods, this is an application of it. It's that simple. But to be able to bring it online real quick is get the hips stronger. If they're loose and they can't get out of it, they need to get stronger. If they're strong but they can't get loose, we get them a bit looser. It doesn't have to be terribly complex unless you're billing by the hour, which I don't do. So I want to get people moving as fast as possible because there's 45 other things that need to happen before the day's over.
Right, man. It's like you say, it's not the way, it's a way. And I think people really need to, and the more you learn all those ways, the better you're going to be able to handle any person who walks through your doors.
That's the thing. Like if you want to squat with a forward shin angle, like some of the guys I lift weights with are extremely good squatters. They have a forward shin angle and they're light years tougher than I am. So I physically can't force them to change the way they squat, with the use of force. So they're going to squat the way they want to squat and we can keep them on track. And I mean, most of the smartest coaches and the most accomplished ones I've met, they have their way of instructing and teaching. And if people want to utilize it, great. There's very little, if any, insecurity about someone following pointers or tips from other groups or tribes to increase their own individual, skill set. The best in the world that I've been fortunate enough to meet, they're more open-minded than anybody, out there saying it has to be this way, the only way, this all the time. Like, that's cool, but like you said, it's a way. This seems to be helping more people than it's hurting, so we'll keep doing it.
So what do you have? So this is a question. When things are the way they are right now with potential gym closures and things like that, we're obviously working on our training phases for home workouts or minimal gear stuff. What are some techniques that you can still train at either a high volume or really strength train, but with limited resources that you kind of have available to you, or with a few kettlebells and bands?
I mean, it's really, like you said, if we're not going to be able to increase the intensity via heavier weight and some of the nice tools that people are fortunate enough to use in the gym, then really the answer is introducing fatigue and volume. So one of the ones we use, especially for our athletes that are committed to a weight class, if we're starting to put on size, or in this case, obviously we're talking minimal equipment, but essentially the same goal. We've got to make some changes to prevent unwanted stuff from happening. So limited equipment, we don't want people to become detrained. So we've got to find some way to do it, is to perform a lot of the same stuff, just in a state of fatigue. So provided you have it's 2020, almost 2021, but 35-pound kettlebell, 53-pound kettlebell, stretch bands, all this kind of resistance bands. These things are not rare anymore. They're out there. So if you've only got limited equipment, the easiest thing to do and maintain fitness instead of just always adding reps is to perform workouts in a higher state of fatigue. So that 53-pound kettlebell, you might be able to swing that for 100 reps when you're fresh. But after you've been huffing and puffing or you're intentionally fatigued, you can get very heavy very quick. So to introduce fatigue is one great way to train, with forward progress, not just making the best out of a bad scenario, but actually make some headway, is training in a higher state of fatigue than you typically do. And then ensuring that you hit the typically problematic muscle groups. So, the idea of high rep extensions, like it's convenient we're on a lat pull down, but it's nice doing it on a rope and a weight stack. All that's cool. But if you've got a band, like, again, tricep extensions are better than no tricep extensions. So get them done. Longer pauses. If you want to put some size on, slowing down the eccentric phase on purpose helps. Moving the elbows to different positions, which again, sometimes deviating from the script where, elbows have to be pinned for tricep activation. If you can move them forward and target the anconeus and get yourself a hell of a lot stronger and healthier triceps, I would rather have someone move their elbows forward and get better work done than adhering to a portion of a script that might not apply to them in that particular instance. So both of those are good ways to go, but the main one you already touched on is the volume and driving things up. Ultimately, if it's a short-term thing, like, God willing, if this second round of shutdowns goes and it's another 2 or 3 weeks where you can't get in the gym and train to full potential, then adding volume or additional workouts and more work at the end of the day or end of the training week is a surefire way to ensure forward progress is made. But that's been the biggest one we've recommended to people. And admittedly, we don't do a lot of like remote programming and things like that. You guys have been to the gym here. It's a pretty small little place, and it's a club with like 4 dozen people at best, maybe 5 dozen, depending what time of year it is. So a lot of our folks, in a local sense, would be pretty well off because we just loan everything out to them, so they can train pretty well. Speaking from experience, but in a hypothetical, to have minimal equipment, introduce more exercises with those 1 or 2 pieces that you have, and add equipment or add fatigue into the equation, as well as increase volume at the end of the week. Because the greatest catch-all is to increase difficulty via more weight, more sets, and more reps. And then, like I said, if the desired outcome isn't size or that's starting to run its course and we need new stimulus, put in fatigue. And I'm not saying like hold your breath, but there's nothing that says you can't do 10 burpees in your living room and then grab a kettlebell and carry on your normal kettlebell routine that you maybe even did last week. Just do it with 10 burpees every 120 seconds or something like that. And it's the idea of having, a plethora of training equipment is doing nothing more than introducing new training stimulus to the body. So new training stimulus can be almost unlimited as far as what you can come up with. But right. For a short, I keep saying short answer, but for a short answer, just introduce fatigue.
Yeah, I think you really hit the nail on the head. Like, as of recording this podcast, maybe 5 minutes before we got the word we're being shut down for 28 days. This will air. We'll probably be 3 days into our lockdown. And I want to reiterate a couple of things that you said for our members that might be listening. Like, the goal is not to stay the same or maintain. Not for us. The goal is to actually improve. And we've been going really hard on the barbell since the last lockdown. And like you said, introducing this new stimulus, some fatigue, some added reps, some added volumes, and maybe taking a little bit of wear and tear off from those heavy loads. There's silver lining to this black cloud of shutdown that we can take advantage of as a community.
And you saw it in the last one too. I think there were some people who were really consistent last time we were shut down who kind of bought into the whole minimal system. And a lot of those people came back, and when they did come back and they were reintroduced to a barbell, their numbers jumped up a lot because they worked on a lot more body weight and small weight rep and perfecting the form and learning how to, isolate different muscle groups. And then also their mobility, I found with a lot of people, their mobility increased so much because they took the extra time to kind of look after themselves. And then when they came back into the gym, everything just continued to exceed. So
right, when we came off that body weight phase, essentially, or very light weights from the weights that we lent out, people got a great, people really started to see some physical gains from getting back onto that barbell. It was like a nice change of routine almost last time.
It was good. And I think
it's a new element. It's a new stimulus essentially being forced upon us. So, if you're in a gym and you have unlimited variety, we're going to do a bunch of different stuff. But if it all goes away and you can only do 10 things instead of 100, then you're going to get so much better at those 10 things. It means that bell curve of quote unquote gains isn't going to last forever. But if you can grab it short term and it carries over, awesome. Because if someone's bench sucks at lockout and all they've done is push-ups and dips and stuff like that and tricep extensions for 6 weeks or 4 weeks, whatever it was, chances are their triceps got a lot of work that they didn't get before, because there's a bunch of other stuff in that gym to distract them from that just repetitive over and over and over and just hammering what in theory would be a weak area, So there's definitely benefit to it. It's just, like Louis says, everything works, but it doesn't work forever. So if you've got it, might as well reap the rewards. Like when we were training here, admittedly, we took probably way too much stuff from the gym to the garage. So the 3 or 4 of us that trained together a few times a week, 6 feet apart with a mask on, from the HOA sent us some nasty letters, I believe. What's it called? But we came out of that entirely different capabilities than we went in, because it was like, we have 8 kettlebells, like 3 pair of dumbbells. So the variety went to pot real fast. And the things that we weren't training or contesting during lockdown, they got even worse than they were. And then the things that we did a whole lot during lockdown, like you said, the dips and push-ups and bodyweight stuff, those got really good compared to where they were because we didn't do them as much. So again, it's a really simple explanation on things. It doesn't have to be terribly complex, unless you're billing by the hour.
Nice. All right, let's take a minute. We'll going to flip the script a little bit after this. I read this ad, and I think we grabbed some questions off Instagram. Casey might have a couple for us. So I'm going to read this one in. Stephen Kidd, financial advisor. Does your financial advisor take the time to really listen to you? Is your financial strategy personalized for you and your family? And will your financial advisor be there, as your financial situation changes? When you work with Stephen Kidd, your local Edward Jones financial advisor, he focuses on what's important to you. You'll work together and you'll use an established process to create a personalized financial strategy backed by the advice, tools, and resources to help you reach your goals. And you'll partner to help choose your strategy to stay on track. Contact Stephen Kidd today at 519-734-8599. That's 519-734-8599. Edward Jones, member Canadian Investor Protection Fund.
So I think one of the first times I was in Indiana with Tony and I went down for one of some seminar. I can't remember exactly which one. But we went in and I noticed a quick bromance the two of you had, almost to the point of jealousy at points. But so being from different kind of areas, different places, how do you guys find you created such a bond to the point of inappropriate messages at the border with
that one almost backfired on me. Go ahead, Jay. You start. If you want.
I think it's just. I think there's a lot of, and I'm not putting myself in the category of good dude by any means, but there's a lot of good dudes and gals out there, and I think for the most part, everyone tends to work the same hours, which are also a ton of hours. So not everyone gets to spend time together. So everyone's remote to some degree. Like we met in Utah, being from Canada and Indiana, and we're actually closer to one another at home than we were to our homes in Utah. And then just, common ground, like running a gym. There's, I feel like there's always, all gym owners probably have an extra beer in their fridge for other gym owners when you just need a day off. So there's like the common ground there. And then the backgrounds of law enforcement and having a family, then leaving law enforcement maybe a little bit before we were ready to. So there's just, ultimately just a lot of good common ground. And then like when someone's just not a dick, it's way easier to be, to get along with. So it's like, all right, I've talked to worse people and spooned in a small bed together than just me and Tony. So I was like, I'll just hang out with this dude forever.
I think last year around this time, I think maybe the jealousy was backwards, because I feel like there's a picture of me and Casey under a mistletoe at your house when we came over for steaks after the lift there when we had everybody down. Pretty comical stuff. And yeah, I gotta agree. It's just like sometimes you find yourself in a situation and you make connections and you build the relationships, and that's kind of what happened. And I appreciate it very much. And instead of like letting that it was an opportunity to meet somebody who you know, who did the same thing I did, and, you know, was doing it before me, and then somebody to learn from. That's been a huge part for me. And, you know, Jason, you're always the first person who answers the phone, or the first person I call when I have a training question, or you know, on my personal training as well. Like when it gets like stymied, what could I do here? Or how do you program for this? What's this stopper? Man, you're always there, man. It's been awesome just getting to know you a little bit more, and it's been awesome getting to know you too, Casey. So
thank you.
So,
but that one day when we went to your house, that was we did go. Tony almost made us leave before we did get to eat, because that was my first introduction to Wagyu beef, which was the best. And that was a question I was gonna have, because you are a bit of a foodie all over your Instagram. You're a big man of meats, we'll say. So what are your techniques and strategies to cooking the best steak you can?
Well, one, we order everything from New York Prime. You plug your groups, we'll plug ours. Step one. But like one, Frankie has good food, not even just the steaks, the other stuff we get too, because there are tremendous amount of veggies and fruit and stuff like that also get eaten. It's just not exciting. But we use just the reverse sear and cast iron on almost everything. Like we've got the grill out back, but maybe for skirt steak, we use the grill, if that. And then we got one of those, this one's called Inferno but it's like a beefer oven. Essentially it's a kiln, like it's 1200 degree oven that runs on propane you plug in. So that's cool because it cooks your steak in like 2 minutes, but that's about it. Just it's like anything else, man, just keep it really simple. So we just cook the same 3 steaks the same way every single time.
So yeah, I got a nice piece of venison ready to go on tonight when I get home. But yeah, Frankie, we got to give a shout out to Frankie Meats, man. Not only does he have great quality product, but he's just an awesome dude. Like he's so generous and like supports all the charity stuff you do. And he even supports our charity stuff. Like he can't send meat across the border, but he's always like plugging us and, you know, throwing $20 or $50, whatever, towards the things that we do, which is amazing. So we're talking about garage gym visits to Applied Strength and Conditioning. It's been, I think I might even use this picture. I got a picture you've never seen that I'm going to post up very soon of me and Candace stealing your flag. But we've grown quite the reputation with your membership on when the Canadians come down. We're coming down hard.
Do people get excited because you get I think you call it hockey drunk? Like, so you're 40 years old. Like I used to be pretty good at boozing when I was 21, but I threw in the towel a decade ago at least. And like you guys come down like you're 40, and then I watch you drink like 14 different liquors and chug a bunch of beers. I'm like, oh Jesus! But it's the funniest thing in the world. So plus, like when you guys come down, like I said, we got a pretty good group of people here, but we're still Americans, so we're not as nice as you guys. Like we're pretty close. But there's still a drastic difference between first and second in that department. So when you guys come down, everyone just gets really excited to have you here. And then when you guys tie one on, it's just funnier than shit to us. So,
oh man, your members treat us like gold.
Against you on that one too. We make sure there's always plenty of beers and stuff here.
Yes, you do. Your members treat us like gold though, man, when we're down there. And then like the towns of Chesterton and Michigan City, and it's just one is like, I'm old enough, and anybody listening from Canada, like there's no smoking in the bars here. But when I was young, that's what they did. We walk into these bars like knuckleheads, and it is like a waft of like Camel cigarettes. Like it's just, and the young people like Casey and some of the staff members I brought down, they're like, what is going on here? There's like, and
this place is on fire.
Your clothes like stink for a week from the cigarettes. It is just, I don't know what I love about that, the nostalgia behind that. I'm not a cigarette smoker, but we have such a blast down there. And I'll tell you, a bucket of beers for $6 with the best cheeseburger I've ever had is a pretty fun thing too. So, and your wife Jess is always leading us in the right direction with her background and
yeah, she knows all those people that own the bars and restaurants out there. So same thing, she works against you a little bit too. She'll call ahead and be like, you're going to have 8 people coming in with Canadian IDs, wreck them. So anything you guys don't clear off your tab, she grabs on like a Monday or Tuesday.
And an American shot, I don't know if you know that, but American shot, for those of you on YouTube, I'm holding this up, is like this cup. It's like crazy. I've never had anything like an American
half the
shot.
price.
Yeah, and half the price, 3 times the amount of booze. It's a pretty amazing thing. So Jay, all fun aside, yeah, the metric, yeah. All fun aside, man, you're one of the hardest working dudes I've ever met around. What is like you and Ben Graham? It's like you guys have a competition for who's gonna get up and drink the most coffee.
I still have his goddamn bench here, but I still haven't met him. But I love checking in with that guy. He's going nuts.
So what's your typical workday look like, man?
Unfortunately, it's usually starts about like 12:30 or 1 in the morning right now. I don't know why, but now I'm up that early. So if I'm lucky, I can fall back asleep at like 3 or 4 and get a quick little power nap. But we open the gym at 5:30 a.m. for a group to get started. And I'm usually here. I'd say at least 3 or 4 of those a week. We're taking at least one day to spend some dad time with the little guy now that he's in preschool. Then get done with that, shoot back home, and eat, clean up, and get him off to school and hang out for a little bit with the family. And then we're back in the gym at 8. So prior to 8, definitely got at least a first round of emails and responses and stuff done from Instagram, all the DMs. Some of it's just funny. It's not all business, you know. Sometimes it's just like, here's a picture of a funny cat. Like, awesome. You know, that's cool. But with like the work for Arsenal Strength, there's a lot that goes into equipment sales. So doing more than just, it's different than just clicking a website, you know, adding it to your cart and checking out. So there's a lot that goes into, you know, the more elaborate commercial gym equipment. So there's always correspondence of some kind waiting in the inbox, just be it an update on something or a quote request or information needed. Something's out there. So usually have a round of emails done before I'm back here at 8. And then from about 8 to 9 is more communication of some capacity between the Arsenal Strength work or some of the educational stuff with Westside Barbell. And then usually lift weights somewhere around 8:30 till 8:30 or 9ish till 9:30, 10 if it doesn't get too busy. But usually, you know, before things really bell curved up, it was a lot of exercise and more exercise. And now it's like supersetting upper back with emails. So we'll break away and do a little bit of work while we're training, which is good and bad. But then the gym wraps up at about 11 in the morning. We button up midday. So midday is more computer work, basically whatever needs tended to. So we'll do a lot more communication on that front. So that lasts the midday. We reopen the gym. It's technically 4 o'clock because I kept getting here at like 3:35, 3:40, and everyone was griping at me for being 5 or 10 minutes late. So we just opened the gym a half hour later now. So now if I'm here at 3:35, 3:40, I'm 20 minutes early and no one can complain. And then throughout the week, we've got a couple. I don't do a whole lot of one-on-ones or training individuals anymore, just because the nature of our gym is more of a club. Like this place is self-sufficient. Like everyone here knows everything they're supposed to know. So we all just kind of spot check and coach each other. But 4 or 5 times a week, I've got a couple one-on-ones, and then we run the gym and do basically the same pattern. There's always some emails or some phone calls that come in, and run the gym till about 7:30 at night, head home, hang out with the family for a little bit and pass out somewhere around like 9:30 if I'm lucky, sometimes 10 if I'm feeling crazy and can stay up that late, and just keep going. And then when we get to the weekend, Saturday morning I've learned to relax a little bit more Saturday mornings before the gym, but we're back in here at 8:30, train till 11:30ish, you know, and hang out. And then Saturday afternoons, pretty much downtime, and been able to plug back in some recreational reading again, which this has been the busiest year I've ever had. And, you know, whatever you want, success is subjective, but we've done more good work this year than we ever have. But the trade-off was recreational reading. This is the least amount of books I've read in a year in probably almost 20 years. Well, I started reading at 19 a lot. So I'd say 18 years. This is the fewest books I've checked off my list in 18 years. So Saturday afternoon is a little bit more downtime. Sunday morning is just killing old work off from the last week, getting stuff ready for Monday morning, or just organizing never-ending stacks of notebooks and scraps of paper, and just kind of prime myself for a week, and some meal prep on Sunday and Thursday. That's pretty much the whole week for the last at least 5 years since I left law enforcement.
I have never seen you up past 9:30, so I am calling bullshit on that.
I've done it a couple of times, dude.
We're going to close this up. I know you got an appointment coming soon. I'm going to read in this last little ad here from Murray Insurance. This episode and every episode is sponsored by Murray Insurance and Financial Services in Kingsville, Ontario. They are Southwestern Ontario's #1 ranked Desjardins insurance agency by their clients and owned by Garage Gym OGs, Ian and Kara Murray. Ian and Kara's team pride themselves on many of the highest standards the Garage Gym members have come to expect, and their expertise in their industry has combined over 100 years of experience in their office. The best customer service in the industry belongs to them. They include a claims concierge service for all of their clients, and focus on community, employing local team members and investing back into the Essex County community on a continual basis. They are a one-stop shop for everything to protect you, your family, and your assets with the best policies in the industry. If you combine your home, auto, and other insurance policies together, you can get an even better rate. Give their team a call or send them a text at 519-733-2331. So before we close it out here, Jay, I know we got something big coming up. Unfortunately, the border is still locking me out of this thing. I finally work my way in with you, and I can't get anywhere. But you guys are heading up to Byron's in Houston. You want to tell us about that in case anybody's listening wants to join? An incredible course, and I'll let you kind of brief on it.
Yeah. So we're doing for the Conjugate tactical stuff. We've got the 1-day workshop, which is essentially it's like a Cliff's Notes of the big coaches course, and it's a chance because not everyone wants to go through the whole gambit of what we've got going on, but sometimes you just want to pick something. I mean, that's all developing your coaching strategy is grabbing stuff from different places and making your own particular, flavor of all this stuff that works for you. So we do a 1 day. It usually ends up being 4 or 5 hours where we touch base on almost everything we're doing and get out to go. This is how we get to travel and meet new people at new places and explain the basics of the system, grab a workout, and just essentially hang out and network. But we try to make sure everyone learns something for sure. So we're heading down to Byron's down in Houston at Misfit Strength. January 9th, we'll be down there. And then our friend Nicole's doing her gymnastics workshop that Sunday to follow because that's where she's from. So I believe she's home that weekend. So Byron opened his doors to her as well. And after that, we're looking, I think, maybe February, March, depending on what the hell the continent looks like. Possibly looking at doing that -2 we've been working on for the coaches course, so more of the advanced programming. And then, God willing, come March, we're going to try and get the pull-through going again because basically the writing was on the wall that we can't have it next weekend. So instead of being stubborn and just doing it subpar, we bumped that back. So those are about the only 3 things on the horizon. And like you said, unfortunately, you guys can't get down for the Houston one because it's not July in Texas, and I'll actually be there through the winter month, which is nice. So
I have a feeling that Houston is going to run no matter what, since I feel like there's like a little less rules in Texas than there is in Indiana and Ontario. But I think that course, I've never actually experienced anything like this in any of my other certifications. Like I was up there in Milwaukee helping you on this very same course. And it's just like, it's like a real budget friendly way to kind of see if you want to invest your time into this certification. And I think it's such a great idea. And again, like last time when I was up there with you in Milwaukee, how many great people do we meet?
Oh, that's where Tony Morrow and his wife hosted us. They're in Japan now, but their gym's still up and running. And that's where we met Trent, Dominique Arrington, handful of other folks. Nobi was there. Just good seeing him again. Get to meet a bunch of people. And then, like I said, I don't want to turn your show into a sales pitch, but if you come to the 1-day workshop, we're going to teach you more of the same at the coaches course. So we refund the day's fee for that back into the coaches course when we do that, and try and make it a thing. Like, we've been fortunate. Like I still have to work. I'm not pulling up to work in a Bentley every day by any means, but we've been fortunate. So not everything has to be a $2,000 swing for a weekend course, because we've still got a hell of a lot of work to do before this thing is holding enough water to make it, worth the full investment that people are making, in my opinion. We definitely don't want someone sabotaging or abandoning what the hell they've been doing that's successful for them to jump on board with us blindly and assume this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, because it very well may not be. But I think we're doing a pretty good thing. And like you said, the 1-day workshop, it's a chance to meet, get a taste of this stuff and see if it is for you, and ultimately get another look at strength training and if this is something you want to do. Because we were joking about it with Trent and some of his guys up there. He's got the gentleman, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but one of his coaches is like 20 or 21 years old. And it turns out guys like us are old men now, and there's a whole nother generation of dudes and gals in their early and mid 20s that are getting started, and they just look in directions of people who have done this for a decade or so longer than them. And now we're in that boat. So now we're not young and cool. Now we're just old guys who answer questions.
Is that the truth, Case?
I'm not answering.
He's going, he's pleading the fifth, as you Americans would say. All right. All right, man. It has been awesome as usual having you on here, and most of all, catching up. We both allowed ourselves to get too busy, where we should probably schedule in some time.
I don't think we've created a conversation of too much substance for anybody who was hoping to learn something today, but it was fun catching up and talking a little shit, like you said.
You're the first person to just call me out on Instagram to invite yourself, and basically planned this show today. So
we've had the plan to catch up call, because I think we both take like a 3 or 5 hour drive every single week somewhere. It's like, all right, I'll call you, and then all of a sudden, like, the entirety of that drive has been spent on other phone calls or something pertaining to business and equipment sales, or something up there going on in Canada, or some weird stuff you guys end up falling back asswards into. It's like, well, Tony, like, I know a surefire way to make sure we catch up. Like, block off an hour.
It's perfect. I love how we did it. So,
and then you can record it.
Yeah, we can fall back,
record it,
and hold ourselves accountable.
Hand it out to everyone who's listening. But
if you are driving for 4 hours, I suggest listening to the Tango One podcast, subscribing, and giving us a great review. Say shameless plug. But cheers, Jace. Thanks for coming on, man, and say hi to the fam.
Awesome. I'll see you guys again soon, I hope.
All right, brother.